Good luck.
Star Fox 64 is an interesting historical game in the Nintendo 64 because if I show you the bottom of the N64 controller here, you could plug things in here. So for example, there were some memory cards that you could plug in here and you could save. And that in itself was kind of silly because Nintendo 64 carts already had built-in memory. I mean, most N64 games, you actually just saved your game save data on the cart itself. However, there were some games, even like, for example, I think NFL Quarterback Club 99, the season was like, OMG, who knows, a megabyte in size, and back in the, I guess, 90s, memory that was a megabyte was way too expensive for the video game manufacturers to put in their carts, so they just expected the person to buy memory cards so that they could actually save their game. But another peripheral that you could plug into the bottom of this controller was the Rumble Pack. So that was kind of the claim to fame with Star Fox 64 in the sense that it was like the first Nintendo game, I believe, ever to have Rumble Pack support. So when you got hit in your ship, your controller rumbled. Now, obviously, this is silly for me to kind of build up because, I mean, what controllers these days don't have built-in rumble? And it's such a part of our video gaming history now that it's almost to the point where I think some people don't even realize that their controller is rumbling. For example, like, take a PS4 DualShock controller, it's like rumbling and stuff. I'm willing to bet at least some percentage of video gamers, if the rumble function suddenly died in their controller, they wouldn't even notice it being gone. Because that's how little they notice it when it was part of their life. So that's kind of an interesting piece of uniqueness. I do have several rumble packs. Actually, I don't know where they are. I haven't fished them up, so I'm going to just be playing this old-fashioned no rumble. And when it comes to the Star Fox franchise and series in itself, it's really interesting because this is kind of like Nintendo doesn't really super care about. This is, I guess, what people typically refer to as like it's Nintendo's B category. Other games or other franchises might be like F-Zero. It's stuff that I guess is not super popular in Japan. So of course, Japan being like always, Japan oriented, has no idea, oh hey, like other countries, like for example the United States, actually enjoy Star Fox games. Might just be a American cultural thing, similar to Metroid. Like Nintendo's made Metroid, right? And they're like, and that's why we didn't have any Metroid game from the Super Nintendo for years until Metroid Prime. And then of course, when Metroid Prime released, it was made by Retro Studios, a Texas, USA based studio. So the amount of Star Fox games is actually extremely limited. The first was Star Fox for Super Nintendo. I'll be going back and streaming that sometime. I did mention Star Fox 2 was basically a 100% complete game that was canceled, never released by Nintendo for the Super NES until it was released many years later for the Super Nintendo Classic Mini thing. So we'll just kind of ignore Star Fox 2 for now. So this is basically the second Star Fox game, Star Fox 64. After that, it was a long time until Star Fox Adventures was released for the GameCube, which is very similar to Mario Bros. 2 in the sense that it's an illegitimate addition to the franchise. And it's sad to me, like Nintendo cared so little about this IP, about this series, about this franchise, that they're willing to, I'll definitely be streaming that and explaining the story a little bit more, but they're just willing to take a game that's not even Star Fox and say, oh, like, look, there's this main character that is like a fox, so let's just make it a Star Fox game. And so then suddenly everything else that Rareware had put into that game is now in part of the Star Fox canon, which I don't really appreciate, but that's just my grumpy old opinion, I suppose. And then beyond that, the only other new Star Fox game is Star Fox Zero, which honestly I really like. a lot of people complain that it's very difficult. It is in the same format as this, which you'll see in a moment. You have to always start from the beginning. And if you game over, guess what? You don't get to save. Your run isn't saved. You start from the beginning, like classic retro difficulty. And even Star Fox Zero, was it hard? Sure. But I beat it on my 3rd attempt. So that's far fewer than, honestly, the number of attempts it took me to beat Star Fox 64 for the first time. So kind of like my advice to everyone out there saying, oh, Star Fox Zero is so hard, it's kind of like, you know, get off your soapbox and stop expecting video games to be so easy that they hold your hand, and like, get good, basically, is all I have to say about that. Let's see, I should also mention that the Star Fox Zero game also came with, what was it called, Star Fox Guard? Let me see if I have that right quick. Alright, I do have it handy. Star Fox Guard, also for Wii U, which honestly, it was kind of just included, and it's just kind of like, think Plants vs. Zombies, a little bit of a tower defense game. It could have been a completely original IP, just like ARMS or Pikmin, but I guess Nintendo thought, well, maybe, just maybe, if we like throw some familiar faces on it and call it a Star Fox game, Star Fox fans will look at this and say, oh, well, maybe I'll give this game a try just because it has Star Fox. Which, I mean, they do that with Mario, Disney does that with Mickey and MCU and Star Wars, and Square Enix does it with Final Fantasy. So, I mean, I would prefer originality over forcing something into a franchise when you're just kind of demoing a tower defense concept. And it actually is pretty fun. Short, fun, and a really decent amount of challenge. So I actually kind of forgot about that game. Regardless of that, I would say even though we have, just those 4-ish games, Star Fox, I think, as a whole, has its biggest representation in the Super Smash Bros. Universe. And Fox and Falco are very powerful Star Fox characters and performers and fighters, and I think most people and their entire universe revolves around Smash Brothers, and so they really appreciate Star Fox games from that. So it would be interesting if something like that could enable Star Fox to become more popular and get more games, just like when Super Smash Bros. Melee first came out, it had 2 Fire Emblem characters. Who were they? Roy and Marth. However, interestingly enough, up to that point, really, to my knowledge, no Fire Emblem games had ever been released in North America. They were all Japanese exclusives. So you have millions of American players picking up Smash Bros. Melee, because Smash Bros. Games are awesome, and they're like, well, who's Roy? Who's Marth? What's Fire Emblem? And notice now that Nintendo's like, oh, there's a market for like Japanese style RPGs or strategy games in North America. And so then they're like, well, let's release Fire Emblem games in North America. And so they have been. And wouldn't you know it, Americans are like the biggest buyers of video games ever. So, dear Nintendo, why don't you ever think that, hey, maybe you should cater to the biggest spenders in video games and see what they will buy and make games based on that, so you can make billions of dollars. But hey, that would just be a businessman decision and not the Nintendo way or the Japanese way, I don't know. Getting back to Star Fox itself though, this game, Star Fox 64, has absolutely beautiful A+ music in my opinion. Now, I would say this and Mario 64 are kind of the only 2 first-party developed Nintendo games for Nintendo 64 that would appear on my top 10 list of favorite N64 games, which is kind of an interesting, almost backwards thing. When you think of Nintendo games and their exclusivity, almost any top 10 list of like Wii U games, Wii games, Super Nintendo games, etc., 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 most you would think are going to be filled with first-party Nintendo developed software, right? But Nintendo 64 was kind of this weird era where I think Rareware, who I kind of already had a rant on that third party because, Nintendo let them get bought out by Microsoft. But This game fires on all cylinders in the sense that it does have epic music, and it has such an ominous, like almost orchestral feel to it. And the interesting thing is, in the Nintendo 3DS era, like early in the 3DS lifetime, there were 2 remakes made. One was Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D, and the other was Star Fox 64 3D. And although Ocarina of Time 3D was great because it beautified Ocarina of Time, it updated it, it modernized it, it has beautiful textures, and fixed a lot of the broken glitches that were in Ocarina of Time and made it way, 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 way beautiful. All of the music is untouched, which is like, okay. But then when you play Star Fox 64 3D, it has all of the already beautiful music remixed beautifully into like beautiful 3DS sound capabilities. And it's like, oh, why didn't they do that with Ocarina of Time 3D? Who knows? But unfortunately, the biggest error with Star Fox 64 3D is the fact that, okay, so if you're flying a plane, right, or in this case an Arwing, and you press down on the control stick, which way should the Arwing pitch? Should it pitch down or should it pitch up? Now, if you think about such a thing, if you have to think about it, you're not like good enough. It's like, without thinking, you are going to move the control stick in the logical way that you think an airplane or any flying device should go. And of course, in Star Fox 64, they have the pitch controls correct. But for some bizarre reason, it's wrong in Star Fox 64 3D, which is like the single biggest reason why I cannot play that game. I didn't buy it. I hate it for that reason. And like, what is up with Nintendo being such communists that they are telling you exactly how you have to play their game with their inverted, incorrect Y pitch controls? It's like, why not program in the game itself the ability to, oh, I don't know, flip the Y-axis and let people play how they want to, just like that question I posed. So if I press up or down, which way do I want to go? And I desperately tried, I searched everywhere. If somebody out there, if there is a way to invert the controls, the pitch controls on Star Fox 64 3D, please, please, please let me know, and I will retract everything I said about that, and I will absolutely love Star Fox 64 3D because it's a remake of this amazing gem in itself. But unfortunately, I think the only option for that is for somebody to actually make a ROM hack from Super Mario or Star Fox 64 3D, a ROM hack where it just inverts the pitch controls and then you play it in that way.
Message from General Pepper. Priority 1. We need your help, Star Fox. Andros has declared war. He's invaded the Lilac system and is trying to take over Corneria. Our army alone can't do the job. Hurry, Star Fox.
So that pretty much describes the situation. Whilst I was yapping for 13 plus minutes, you probably got to see the overall them running down the corridor scene. Now, this stage select music is so almost chilling. It's hard for me to describe. But it's like, does this leave you feeling empty, alone, or is it just like that Interstellar soundtrack that makes you feel so small in the universe? I don't know. I do want to show off this ranking because this is the only time you'll get to see the default scoring before we, like, even if you don't win, every time you make a playthrough, however like, it's pretty hard not to get more than 10 hits. You then enter your initials, and then you will be engraved in this ranking. So you only have 3 symbols here. I'll show what they're supposed to be. Fox, Peppy, Slippy, Falco, Wolf, Leon, Pigma, I believe Andrew, Bill, and Cat. So, there is a training mode and a versus mode even, but let's go ahead and start with the main game. I'll go ahead and get it started because you can't skip the first time you actually load this baby up.
Corneria, 4th planet of the Lilat system. The evil Andros turned this once thriving system into a wasteland of near extinction. General Pepper of the Cornerian army was successful in exiling this maniacal scientist to the barren, deserted planet Venom. 5 years later, General Pepper noticed strange activity coming from Venom. James McLeod, Pigma Dangar, and Peppy Hare of the Star Fox team were sent to investigate. Upon their arrival, Pigma betrayed the team, and James and Peppy were captured by Andros. Peppy barely escaped Venom and returned home to tell James' son, Fox, about his father's fate. A few years had passed. Andros has again invaded the Lilat system. General Pepper has turned to a new Star Fox team, headed by Fox McCloud, to save Corneria and free the Lilat system once again.
So with the Nintendo 64, there's very limited cart space, and so audio does take up a lot of space, and so that's kind of the difference between, like, say, the Sony PlayStation, where you could have the entire CD, so you had uncompressed audio, and N64 games, which had very little voice acting, voice dialogue, and if there were, like for example in Star Fox 64 here, it's super compressed. Now that first narrator is actually pretty good quality considering, but you gotta love the overall voice quality and voice acting and compressed audio quality, which sometimes it's so bad it's good sort of thing. What's really cool, I noticed this many years ago, idling on the Lilat system here, the center giant star, if you just don't have any controller input, notice how the whole system is like orbiting around that center star, which is like a really nice programming touch. I love super subtle things like that probably took some doing programming, and 99% of the players are probably not even going to notice it, because the second, and you can like see anything you want, like rotate, and I think if you idle out again, it starts slowly orbiting again. Alright, so every time you die, you have to start from the very beginning. You don't get any do-overs in the sense that if you do complete a level, you have the option of taking a death, replaying the level, but you always have to start out with the low laser.
It's about time you showed up, Fox. You're the only hope for our world.
I'll do my best. Andros won't have his way with me.
Good luck.
And this, like I said, when you first see this, you cannot skip these scenes. So from henceforth though, on subsequent playthroughs, we would be able to skip most of the cinematics. Some cinematics can't be skipped though.
Check your G-diffuser system. Falco here. I'm fine.
I love his sassy personality.
This is Peppy. All systems go.
Slippy here. I'm okay.
I see him up ahead. Let's rock and roll.
So similar to the original game, you first start out with kind of like an on-rails shooter,
Slippy, get back here! Slippy, watch out! Don't be on your tail!
So that's the laser item. Now I am shooting a double laser. If I get one more power-up laser, I will have the blue hyper laser, which is the most powerful laser. Which, fun fact, the only way you lose your lasers is if you straight up die, and then you will have to start out with the single shot laser again, or if you break your wings. So, doesn't quite make sense, but in any event, if you're flying through like narrow passageways, you could accidentally run into a wall, break off a wing, and then bam, lose your lasers, which kind of it disadvantages you even more, because when you have a broken wing, you aren't flying straight. So maybe I can showcase that, but not on a run that I'm going to try to actually do well on.
We're entering Corneria City now. Everybody stay alert! You got an enemy on your
Oops,
tail.
I accidentally spent a bomb. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I'll take this. Get the one behind me. Something's wrong with the G diffuser. Use the boost to take. I guess I should be safe.
So, there is most definitely friendly fire. So you can kill off all of your own teammates. So you do have to be careful when they fly right in front of your face not to shoot them down.
Do a barrel roll.
So on any given course, if you achieve 3 gold rings, you will increase your maximum health for that course, which is interesting. So like, for example, notice my max health is increased. I will retain this 1 gold ring over to the next course. So that's kind of nice.
Try a somersault.
Enemy robot, dead ahead.
And now I'll retain actually these 2 gold. Oh, so incidentally, if you actually get 6 in any given course, after you've, or I should say, if you increase your health and then get another 3 rings, you do get a 1-up. All range mode. So now I can fly anywhere within this little thing. Oh, man.
I'm going to crush you.
Enemy shield analyzed.
Those who cross that drop will die.
Whoa.
Bang! I'm hit. Aim for his back.
Well, I blew its leg off, so now it's a non-moving target.
You annoying little fly.
Whoa.
No!
What's hitting me, man?
I will not be defeated by this worm. My Emperor! I failed you!
I love all these dialogues. So, fun fact, you cannot skip any scenes afterwards, ever. Mission 1.
We're heading out. All aircraft report.
You did it! I was worried for a moment.
You're becoming more like your father.
I'm fine over here.
I'm fine. You okay over there, Fox?
Okay, so another fun fact. If you have saved, like if all 3 of your teammates are alive and you have scored enough enemy hits, in this case you actually need to defeat 150. You get a medal on that course. Maybe something special will happen if you get a medal on every single one of these courses. Bizarrely enough though, Corneria is, for me, one of the hardest levels to actually get a medal on. 150. So, yeah.
Hey, Einstein, I'm on your side.